Hello, everyone. I have right at noon, so we will go ahead and get started. Folks might be joining us throughout, and that's a-okay. Can I get some thumbs up that you can see the share screen and we see our honors hour there? Awesome, perfect. So we will today be talking about finding your story through research and leadership. And so I'm excited to be one of multiple speakers today talking to you about different opportunities during our first honors hour of the fall 2020 semester. So thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. I'm gonna go ahead and go through a little bit of what today's session will look like. We'll start with some introductions here in just a minute. From some chat and logistics standpoint, the session's being recorded. We will have this available for you to come back and review, and for those that are unable to join us today. So go ahead and keep your microphones muted. There will be an opportunity at the end of each speaker's content for some brief questions, and then we'll open the floor for questions at the conclusion of our time together. You can use the chat feature as well. We'll work to monitor that and make sure that those questions get answered. And then at the very end, we'll go ahead and stop the recording and turn it over to Angelique, who will introduce herself in just a minute, to talk to you about upcoming honors hours and for the opportunity to win some prizes for being here in attendance today. So with that, I will let my fellow presenters introduce themselves. I've got it listed in speaking order, so if we want to just start with Erin and go down the list, and then we will jump right into our first presentation.
Almost didn't unmute. Hey everybody, I'm Erin. I work in the Honors College and I manage the administrative end of the IRCA Grants program. And I'm really excited to talk to you about it.
Well, I'm Mariah Beck. I'm a professor in the chemistry department here and have been involved with the creation of the Honors College from the start, and have now started the FIRE or first year research experience in STEM. This will be the third year, and I'm excited to tell you more about that.
And everyone, my name is Chelsea Rager-Marquardt. I'm a faculty member within the Honors College, and I also teach and have a joint appointment within the College of Applied Studies. I am the director for the new Leadership Academy, and that's what I'll spend some time talking with you today about, called Lead for Tomorrow. I'm very excited to share this for the inaugural year.
Hi everyone, my name is Angelique and I am one of the graduate assistants for the Honors College. My title is Diversity Recruitment and Marketing Graduate Assistant. And at the end of today's session, I just have a couple reminders for you about upcoming honors events, and I'll be drawing for a prize.
Awesome, thanks. I'm going to stop my screen share and let Erin take it away.
Again with the mute. So like I said, my name is Erin. I manage the administrative end of the IRCA Grants program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what IRCA Grants are, how they're used, and address some of the big questions and issues that students have when applying for these grants. So any questions at the end regarding what people have used them for a little more specifically are very welcome. So an IRCA grant is funding of up to $1,000 to support collaborative student and faculty research. What does that mean? In some cases, it means students are completing research projects that tie into current faculty research. In other cases, students are completing projects that they developed with a faculty mentor, but that don't directly connect with existing faculty research. So what can they be used for? grant funds can be used for anything that directly supports the research project. This includes general materials, supplies, and equipment, but it can also fund travel to off-campus labs or museum collections, or even travel to conferences if you intend to present your work. The big thing that IRCA grants cannot fund is stipends. So in other words, you cannot pay yourself for your time using these funds. So to be eligible, you have to be a sophomore, junior, or senior with a declared major and a GPA of 2.5 or higher when you apply. If you are a senior applying, you will need to have at least one more semester after the semester of your application in order to be eligible. So you can't turn in an application in October if you're graduating in December. This just ensures that you have enough time to complete the research that you're wanting to complete. The only exception to this is if you're traveling to a conference, you've already done the research and you want funding to go to the conference in your last semester, the committee does consider those applications if funding allows. Next, in order to be eligible, you do have to be working with a faculty mentor. Even if your project doesn't tie directly to their research, you want that mentorship while you're developing and executing your project. So, lots of questions we get are about how to apply, what's the best way to apply, how are they supposed to be working with their faculty mentor. So your first step is to go to our webpage, wichita.edu/IRCA. That's going to have all the details, more than what I'm telling you now. So that's a great place to start. There you're going to access the application worksheet. This is a new feature. We haven't always had this, but this is a word-for-word copy of the application. It's going to allow students to edit and really work on their applications. It's shareable, so you can send it to your faculty mentor. They can send it back with comments. This is the expectation that you're working very closely with your faculty mentor while you're developing this grant application, especially if you've never filled out an application before. It's not always intuitive, and this particular application is pretty general. So some sections that work really well with the hard sciences might not translate as easily into a humanities application, and your faculty mentor is going to help you navigate that easier than if you were just trying to do it yourself. That's a really good thing for you generally, because the more polished your application is, the less likely you're going to be asked to edit, and that just means that you're going to be getting your funds a lot sooner and can get started on the research, which is obviously what you want. The last tip in the application that I always give students is to pay attention to the instructions. We get really detailed in what we're asking for in some sections, specifically the budget section. So, we're asking for links to purchasing websites and things like that. And this is a big hang up for a lot of students. It's the reason we ask for edits a lot, is just to get more details on that. So if you're paying attention, you're working with your faculty mentor, that's going to make that process very smooth. Once you've turned in your application, the committee review process is pretty straightforward. They're looking at your budget, they're looking at your faculty support, and the general strength of your proposal, from your basic research questions to the potential impact of the project. If there are any issues along the way with those things, the committee will ask you for edits, and you'll have the opportunity to resubmit and still get that funding once you've corrected things that the committee didn't feel were very clear. So we get a lot of questions also about kind of next steps. The Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities Forum is an event on campus where you can share your work. It's required if you have done research with the IRCA grant funding, and you can actually compete for cash prizes. We also encourage students to pursue other opportunities that aren't required. We sponsor the Undergraduate Research Day at the Capitol, where we're taking students up to Topeka along with the other state schools. We're talking to the other schools, we're talking to representatives from KBOR and lawmakers as well. That's a really cool program. There's also conferences that you can find, general honors college conferences in the region and discipline-specific conferences that your faculty mentor can help you find and apply for as well. And we definitely love to see our grant awardees participating in these conferences. So that's the spiel. If anyone has questions.
I just wanted to offer a comment as someone who's worked with students that have applied for IRCA. One thing to keep in mind is that you're writing this for kind of a more general audience. And so sometimes, and my students and I are guilty of this as well, you may write something that's like way too technical and jargony. So that would be my advice, is to definitely, you know, keep it pretty straightforward and cut out as much jargon as you can, or define terms.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Can you talk about how many of these are awarded each year? I don't know. Is it a very highly competitive process, or?
So we award, the goal is to award 20 a year. We have gotten pretty close to that recently. So it's not very competitive yet. You know, we do have the funds to fund most applications that do come in at the moment, but we are trying to grow it. So, you know, it's always best to approach it as a competitive process.
And did you mention what the max amount is on the budget?
It's $1,000. Which that's actually another question we get a lot. If your overall project budget is over $1,000, we definitely like for you to list that in the budget section. We just will only fund up to $1,000.
Erin, can students only be eligible for the funds one time, or can they apply for multiple times, either same project or different project?
That's a great question. You are only eligible for one IRCA grant. So I have talked to students who, you know, wanted to go to a conference, but also had a research project on the horizon. And, you know, some of them have decided, well, I'll just wait because I'd rather get the funding for the research later than, you know, a couple hundred for conference travel now. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're planning on doing multiple research related projects.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, there will be, oh, I see a hand. Go for it, Dr. Bernstroh.
So I do, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So I do have one question. Are these IRCA grants available for any kind of research, quote, creative project, or can it only be what we would consider STEM research?
That's a great question. IRCA grants are available to anyone on campus. And our committee is made up of faculty members and staff members from various areas of the college. And so we do try to make sure that everyone is, you know, generally represented, and we can review those applications well.
So it could be like for materials for an artistic project or a microphone for recording or something like that.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, there will still be time for overall questions. So if something comes into your mind, know that all the panelists will be able to talk about those at the conclusion. But thanks so much, Erin. We will move into our next presenter and talk about the first year research experience.
All right. Let's see if I can share. So FIRE, as I mentioned, is the first year research experience, and currently we do focus in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but we are pretty flexible and broad in defining STEM. We've had students in psychology projects, human performance, kind of exercise science projects. So, you know, you could send me a question if you're curious about whether the type of research that you're interested in would fall under this category of STEM. So the first year research experience, we started this, like I said, we've had 2 classes come through, and we really based this program off of similar programs that are found at other universities, and in particular, we went and visited Oklahoma University that has an established FIRE program. All of these have in common that it's an applied learning program for first year students. And this could be a transfer student in their first year at Wichita State, or it could be a freshman, you know, what we think of as first year students, and provides them with we act as a matching service. So we accept applications from first year students that are interested in getting involved in research early on in their career. And then we also accept applications from faculty members across campus that are interested in mentoring or have specific projects that they've developed that are appropriate for first year students. And so both of these parties are then applying to the program, and we try to match up the students with the faculty members. And so kind of what's required is that you'll work with a mentor, and that may be a faculty member, but oftentimes it's also a graduate student or even another undergraduate that's been in the lab for more time. And you'll work on some ongoing research project in that lab for 1 semester. So that's the minimum requirement. We also have an Introduction to Research in STEM course that will run in the spring semester. And so that's when your research in the lab will also begin in the spring semester. So you get 1 credit for the course, and it meets once a week. And then you receive 2 credits for that research commitment that you have to make. That's one of the requirements. And that research credit will be with that individual faculty member that you're matched with. Here are just some examples of the areas, topics that we had involved last year. We do have quite a few engineering projects in the past, but last year we actually had one, maybe Elaine would enjoy learning about this one. We had a student that was interested in botanical illustrations, and her project actually involved designing, I'm going to call it a sticker, but that might not be the right word, but basically stickers that go on windows to prevent bird strikes. And so it did combine kind of some art with the science parts. So the benefits that we see for this are that you get to be a participant in a faculty mentored research project that's really going to be very different than your laboratory experience in a course, because you're going to be contributing new knowledge to your discipline, doing experiments that nobody else has ever done before. And so it'll give you kind of a feel for what it's really like to do research really early on, so that you can decide if that's something that you want to pursue for a longer time period, or if it's not the right thing for you, you've decided and you can move on. You'll receive training and support in finding that research mentor. And you'll also be part of this kind of interdisciplinary network with other first year students that are all engaging in research, so you can share your experiences, as well as the professional mentoring that you get in that lab. And hopefully the course also allows you to discover other funding opportunities. I also have some career speakers that come in to talk about how people who are engaged in research may have a variety of different types of careers, because you may only be exposed to kind of the academic side of research here at Wichita State. So I've introduced kind of scientific writing careers, public policy careers, and try to give you a lot of different exposure there. And then you also earn honors credit for this. The requirements, as I've mentioned already, as far as, you need to be a first year student. And if you have credits from, high school or those kind of things, we're not going to use those against you. That's why I use the term first year instead of freshman. You need to have completed one STEM course before you apply. We just want to know that you have some commitment to a major in a STEM field. And again, we'll broadly define that. As far as in the program, you're expected to that 1 hour of in-class time each week, and that's going to be Mondays from 4 to 5:15, I think. And then we have 2 to 3 hours out of class for the homework related to that course. And then the other big time commitment for you, and this is something that if you're working a full-time job or 20 hours a week and taking a full course load, you need to consider that when you sign up for this program. We want to make sure that you have 8 to 10 hours per week during normal business hours that you can be working in that research lab. And a lot of this time may not be physically even in that lab. It may be preparing for experiments, analyzing data on your computer in your dorm room, but you need to have that time set aside. And then just like with the IRCA grants, we also do have a presentation. It's been a poster presentation when we could meet in person, or last year we also did kind of a PowerPoint presentation via Zoom, and that's part of that course, so that's the last week of that course. So the application is currently available. It's if you go to the wichita.edu/fire, you can find the website for that. It's going to be due October 1st, and it asks a lot of questions, just kind of general demographics and your STEM interests. And then it has these 5 essay questions that you can find on that application as well. So we're just trying to make sure that we get a good feel for what your research interests are, so that we match you up with a mentor that is compatible. So the timeline, then we'll have those applications coming in from both students and mentors. By the middle of October, we'll try to arrange interviews. These are kind of informal interviews between the selected students that are selected to participate in the FIRE program and the mentors that we think are the best match. So you'll get a chance to talk to that mentor, and they will get to introduce you to the projects or potential projects that they have for you. And then by November, we'll finalize those matches so that you can enroll in the course and start kind of discussing the project even over winter break, so that when you start in the lab in spring semester, you're kind of ready to hit the ground running. So this is some pictures from the research showcase from the first year when we were able to do poster presentations in person. We did invite faculty and staff. You can see this is the back of Dean Ingber from the Honors College and other faculty members. Last year, this ended up being kind of the Zoom presentations instead. So these are the participants from last year. And I just wanted to put up this last quote from one of last year's FIRE students. That was a question that was posed during that research presentation. What drives your interest or passion in this research? And Gary responded that he likes to think the thing that drives him most is the process of discovering something new. And so this is really the unique aspect. He was involved in a project where he was able to create new materials that had never been created before. So I'm very excited to, and he's still working in the lab in the chemistry department with a new inorganic professor. So we hope that this FIRE program isn't just a one and done, that this actually just opens a door for you to explore research either in that same lab or find other labs that you're interested in working in. So I'm also happy to take any questions that folks may have about the FIRE program or the application process. Okay, I see one question on, is there a limit on how many students are accepted? That's a good question. In the past year, we did have, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think we had 30 applicants for this FIRE program. And we were only able to find mentors for, I think, 14 or 16. Sometimes we do pair up students if mentors are willing to take more than one student. And so we've had multiple fire students paired up with one mentor. So we try to maximize, but that is our limitation, is the number of faculty we have that have projects and are willing to take on a fire student. So I have another question here. Can a mentor from one lab or discipline select more than one student if they believe both are a good fit? Oh, yeah, I answered that one, yeah. Yeah, so that, and actually at Oklahoma University, they try to pair up students because it offers a unique kind of experience for those two students to be working together as a team in one lab. Sometimes that's an easier situation and creates a better kind of environment for the fire students. So we just don't have enough faculty that are willing to take on more than one sometimes. So can students apply as a team or partner? We actually don't have that as part of the application. That's a good idea. I could add that to the application. And I think another thing, if you have already talked to a faculty member that's interested, that you're interested in working with, that would be another thing that you could put in your application. So in the last question, we kind of have it just as an open-ended question. And so if you did have another student that you wanted to work with, you could put it in that last question. And if you had a particular faculty member that you were interested in working with, that would also be great information to provide us, because I can sometimes twist a few arms and you know, go to faculty and let them know that somebody is particularly interested in their research. I've done it with my husband's a biology professor, so when I have students that express an interest in botany, I kind of have to twist his arm a little bit to get him interested. And I should mention that last year, and I haven't confirmed this with Dean Ingber yet, but last year there was also funding that was available for the faculty, much like the IRCA grants, to be used for supplies for those projects. It wasn't as much as the IRCA grants. This is just a one semester project. So that is also another way that we try to entice faculty to mentor, is to let them know that there are some funds available. But this is not a place where you have to write a research proposal. So that's one difference between FIRE and IRCA. We would hope that after FIRE, you would be able then to develop that IRCA grant proposal. And so we see this as kind of a pipeline. And I know there may be some students from the Summer Research Institute that are participating today. I don't remember everybody's name, but that's also part of this kind of pipeline. So we have a Summer Research Institute that took place in a week before classes started, or 2 weeks before classes started. And so last year we had several students from the Summer Research Institute that then also participated in FIRE. So it's not like if you participated in that, you can't be in FIRE. We see these as things that you can progress through different stages of research experiences. And many of the students that I've had in my own personal lab from FIRE have applied for other sources of funding that do pay them in addition to providing supply funds. So hopefully if you're, and I know last year we had 2 students that got NASA Jumpstart grants that were FIRE students, and then we had 2 other students that got what's called K-INBRI, which is kind of in the biomedical research areas, that paid them to continue their research projects over the summer, and they got paid a stipend. So those are also great opportunities. These are just kind of doorways to entering into research and hopefully continuing through other sources. Okay, I see another question about, can only first-year students as freshmen apply, or sophomores and other students as well? At this point, yeah, we are focused on first-year students for the FIRE program. I will say that if you're a sophomore just by credit hours, but this is your first year at Wichita State, I would still encourage you to apply. If you are a second year, at Wichita State, I think you can still get involved in research, but it just won't be through this FIRE program. And so, at that point, you can reach out to faculty members to get involved in research and use this IRCA grant that Erin talked about as a way to kind of talk about developing a research project.
Well, if any other questions come up, again, we will have that time at the end. Thanks so much, Dr. Beck. And I'm going to round out our 3 conversations today, sharing with you a little bit about our new Leadership Academy. And so the Lead for Tomorrow Leadership Academy will be launching this academic year. It really takes place in the spring to early summer time period. And so I thought I would first give just a little bit of information about where we came from and where we currently are. So the Academy was a part of the original gift and the naming gift for the Cohen Honors College. And so we're really excited to take what started as this origin and bring it into life. This last academic year, we've spent a lot of time in the planning and development and design phase of what the Academy will look like and what it will encompass. We'll launch with our first Academy this year. Each year there's an annual theme. This year's theme is going to look at storytelling. And so the stories that we tell from both visuals and verbal, and what that means for community and culture, and what stories are told and what stories are untold, and kind of dig through all of those different components. And then each year an annual theme will be announced. So one of the unique parts of this experience are these wonderful humans. These are going to serve as our faculty thought leaders. And so we have imagined this to be an intellectual community that kind of has 2 levels. And these faculty thought leaders will help bring in information, topics, discipline specific, and talk about interdisciplinary ways in which we can tackle things related to the theme and understand leadership through these messy problems. And so Bobby Berry will be joining us from workforce leadership and sport management and bring in a lot of different factors from this leadership lens as well. Dr. Samantha Gregus will join from psychology and understand community psychology. Doug Stuckey's going to come in and be our resident expert on innovation and design thinking. And then Dr. Cindy Mason will be joining and understanding industrial engineering and how systems and processes can impact how we think about problems and solutions. I'm really, really jazzed about the opportunity to collaboratively teach these courses. And so, like I said, we see this as being an intellectual community that's built from these 2 classes. And so students that are accepted into the Leadership Academy will take and enroll in 2 different courses. The first is a second 8-week semester course in the spring. That's a 3-credit-hour course that will also count towards the leadership track within the Honors College. And so if that's something that you're pursuing and interested in, that's one of the biggest benefits. And then there's a 1-credit-hour experience that will have a immersive travel experience. And so we'll be using a concept called Places Text, which is a National Collegiate Honors College best practice. And really what it means is you travel and explore and you use that travel as your textbook. And so you understand how that informs your thoughts and what narratives you understand related to, in this case, a theme about storytelling. And so the students and the faculty thought leaders will come together both in the classes to prepare, and then at the end in a solutions retreat that will look at the annual theme and these messy problems. And so, we'll ask questions about how are stories formulated and how are we ensuring that we're telling the same story when it comes to processes and procedures, and how do we understand ourselves in context to these larger stories in society? And what stories are forgotten and how do they get lost? And so we'll dig through that and understand what's the responsibility for leaders to make sure that the narratives are being told and that we can contribute towards our community and culture. And so here's a bit of a timeline on what to expect. So the official announcement and opening of the website and the application will be coming out in the weekly update from the Honors College on Friday, September 11th. So that's when you can see the online application. Similar to both FIRE and IRCA, there's an application that you'll fill out that will ask some questions about your interest and what your goals are for your participation. It asks you to respond to that information. We also are asking for a resume that highlights some of the things that you have been involved with. All honors students are eligible for this experience. I would say it's primarily focused towards students that might be, that have at least some time left at the conclusion of the Leadership Academy. We see it as a springboard into lots of other different ways to be involved in both the college and with the overall university. And so if you're a graduating senior, but you still have a full semester left, you would be fully eligible. Otherwise, any student that, like I said, has at least a semester left would be eligible. In October, we will continue to have some marketing and some additional information sessions. There'll be a more robust presentation that's an on-demand video that you can watch from the website that will tell more information about the theme, also give some details about the travel components, and we'll be able to announce some of those. As you can imagine, some of our travel plans, we are making sure to be cautious and to plan accordingly with the travel and CDC guidelines. And so we'll have information for you with that. And applications will be due on November 3rd. And so you can go ahead and have those uploaded at that time, and students will find out about the status of their application before the conclusion of the fall semester. They will be able to then enroll in the connected courses for the spring and then the subsequent summer. In your spring semester, you can expect to continue to have community and information during the first 8 weeks and then be together in a class. The class will meet on Mondays and Wednesdays from 9:30 to 10:45. And so if that's something that you're really excited for and want to save that time within your schedule, that's wonderful. And then the summer semester will be when the travel will occur, and we will conclude with a solutions retreat, and students will have the opportunity to come together and to think about what are some things, some interventions, some policies, procedures that they might propose to help as leaders and to help make marked change within their communities. And so it will conclude, the retreat will conclude with these presentations that students will be sharing with faculty, thought leaders, and other leaders within the college. And we hope that then those pitches and ideas can become reality. And so that's some of the main reason why we want you to still have some time left in your undergraduate or graduate tenure so that you can pursue some of these opportunities. And that will all conclude in early June. And so it's about a 8-week and then another 3 to 4 weeks in your early summer time period commitment. So I'm going to leave it there with any questions that I can answer about the Academy itself or about the annual theme or anything like that. And you can enter those into the chat if you have any questions. I'll go ahead and move us to just opening up for overall questions at this point, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say if there are questions that popped up about any of the conversations that we discussed today, we would be more than happy to try to answer those for you. So I'll pose this question and maybe let Erin or Dr. Beck respond. So if there's a general idea about a research topic, but they're lacking specifics, is there a department to talk about what could be done, or do we have to maybe navigate that on our own?
Yeah, so we have a lot of students that come to us and say, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is also the case with classes and everything. And we can say, oh, well, we know this professor, he works with honor students. We can maybe get you in contact if that's something that you need. But we definitely encourage you to go out and pursue those connections as well. So if there's a professor that you've taken a class with and you connected with, you know, talk to them. You can always approach faculty members about research that you're wanting to do. We find that they're very excited to help you with that. So you can do that, or you can come to us.
What is the deadline for the FIRE application? One more time.
It's October 1st. For the student application, we give the faculty a couple more weeks because sometimes we have to go out and recruit a few more faculty once we look at the student applications.
Great. Other questions? Keep on adding those into the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask right away. I had a question sent in about the Leadership Academy. With students, there is also some funding to help support the student experiences with this as well, so that depending on the travel destination and location, there is some support to help with that student travel piece as well. So know that that is part of the experience and will be out in the information in October. So we're really, really excited about this, and we think it's going to be a dynamic experience, that you're going to have this really interdisciplinary courses, and to be able to talk about talk with your peers, and to solution and to brainstorm and to dig deeply into some things. But there's also this great way for you to go out and to experience and to travel. And so to bring all of that together in this solutions retreat, we're pretty excited about what this is going to mean for students and what this inaugural cohort is going to go for. So great question. Another question about, is there any information that students could see to see what professors are currently researching?
So campus-wide, there really isn't at this time. There might be more information department by department, but that is actually something we're working on, getting a little more information like that on the undergraduate research web pages. Ideally, we would have a list of professors that are doing work that they're hoping to find students to help them with, but we're not quite there yet. Right now, your departments are probably going to be your best resources as far as figuring out what people are working on.
Yeah, if you go to any department's webpage, if they're worth their salt, right? You should be able to navigate to individual faculty members' web pages, and they should have some description of what they work on. It may be very general and it may be out of date slightly, but that's probably your best place to go. I had a question for you, Chelsea, about is this I'm picturing this, is this like travel abroad where all the students are together traveling and taking a course abroad, or is it individually?
That's a great question. Yes, it is very much so like a travel abroad. So we would go collectively as a group. to that destination. And so, yes, you would have folks to travel with, and then experiences and opportunities that connect both to the location and to what it is we've spent some time exploring. Okay, well, if any other questions come in, feel free to keep adding those into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording at this point and ask that you all stay on the line, and we will turn it over to Angelique to do some of our prizes and reminders and next steps.